Hey, good afternoon. Uh, this is the annual Kentucky Data and Security State Required Training for the 24-25 school year. This has to be completed by state law by the end of August, but we had went ahead and put it on our agenda for the 31st or in the end of July board meeting. So what we're going to do is go ahead and go through this. I'm sorry I can't be there, but I have another obligation that I have to be at. And when you watch this, if you have questions or anything like that, I will answer those at the next board meeting and stuff. So let's start out by talking about data security. And one of the things that our district needs to make sure that we are practicing is safety of school data. And of course, as in the past, and you've heard about all these unauthorized, you know, access breaches and stuff like that, and cyber threats. The one thing that, as a district, we have to safeguard the personal information of our students, staff, academic records, that being financial, health, or student. Uh, and so there are some things that we need to look at and think about when we become data secure or safety. Okay, so data privacy is a big issue. Access control. Um, we try to control things so that things can't get into our district. Encryption, we use that in our email. Network security, we're always monitoring. We actually have several safeguards. We get weekly reports about certain little flaws in our data and what we can do to improve those things. We also are working with the state, uh, and eventually we will probably go ahead as a district, this is in the future, and purchase another monitoring tool that we can actually monitor our network even more in detail. And it'll provide those little holes in which data can actually get compromised. Of course, physical security, that data security does not always deal with what's online. It's also the files and records that we hold in our hands. Taking them out of the building on a laptop on a jump drive. We also have a lot of backup and recovery. Uh, we work with Munis, Infinite Campus, and they all have their backup systems in place. Most of the things that we do anymore is backed up to the cloud. And then we have to make sure that we are in compliance, okay, with regulations. And that means how we send things or how we store things and who we work with and so forth. And then, of course, you are doing your security awareness training, but our staff will also. And then we need to understand how to, and what happens. What happens when an incident happens, and how do we respond to that? And of course, vendor management. Vendor management means when we're working with those vendors and stuff, you know, making sure that that data is secure because they have a lot of data in their hands, and we do not want it to be leaked out. So, what is a breach? Of course, we went over this many times, but we need to make sure that you recognize or understand that it is a KRS 61 931 through 4. They do define what a breach is. It's an unauthorization, distribution, disclosure, destruction, manipulation, or release of unencrypted or unredacted records or data that compromises or the agency or non-affiliate third party responsibly believes may have compromised the security, confidentiality, or the integrity of the personal information and results in the likelihood of harm to one or more individuals. Of course, part two, it's a very close to the same thing. Uh, we won't read it, but basically, there are some examples that you need to be aware of. Of course, you've heard of phishing, you've heard of malware, uh, but there are also human errors. People accidentally emailing information to the wrong person, having a laptop, a USB drive, CD-ROM, which it's in the past, but it's still there. External hard drives could be stolen, left in a car, left in McDonald's, so forth. And we already said paper and pencil, sorry, paper products and things like that with student information just being thrown in the trash should be shredded. Losing track of the reports of personal information on them, sharing one's username and password that would grant access to those things that people shouldn't have access to. And then, of course, having those conversations with a parent or student while you're on a mic, like I am right now, that could be compromised. So those are some examples of what the KRS is and examples of what a breach is. So, what defines a breach? Of course, we went over this many times in the past, but unfortunately, you still need to understand that personal information, means the individual's first initial and last, or first name, sorry, or first initial and last name, a personal mark or unique biometric or genetic print or image in combination with one or more of the following. So the top part's automatic. And I'll read parts of it. You can look underneath at the little brief definitions, but an accounting number, a credit card, a debit card number, social security card number, an identification number, same thing on the top with an agency, identification number with the state, and an individual health information. And and you've heard in the past that there have been all kinds of leaks with those things. So any of those combinations with what's at the top. Now, what causes a breach? A breach can occur due to various reasons. All right, so this includes cyber attacks. People that are phishing and using malware to get things that they need or want. Human error, mistakenly leaving your drive here, sending an email, weak passwords, inside threats, access to sensitive data. They probably shouldn't click that email. They just accidentally send it out. Physical threat. Okay. There's the loss of laptop again. Software vulnerability. We haven't updated our patches or updated our machines, and hackers have found that going to something in the past, they can get through backdoors. So that's why it's important to keep your software updated and everything patched. Third-party breaches. Now, sometimes you cannot control third-party breaches. I mean, you go to the hospital and you leave your health records there. You're open to whatever happens to the hospital because that vendor has those things. Unsecure network. You go into McDonald's, that's an open network. There's a good possibility you could be jumping onto something. Sorry about that, hit the mouse. And then social engineering, which of course is they use like tactics and methods to manipulate you. They'll send you an email, saying you've done something horrible, and if you do not do this, we're going to send this to your boss, and so they kind of mess with your mind and stuff. So just be aware those things are out there, and that's why they kind of do it. But the biggest reason, that's the reasons why, but the biggest thing is they want that data for certain reasons. Now, if you haven't heard, and these have occurred within the last, probably, I would say, within the last year. Ticketmaster confirmed a data breach earlier this year affecting 560 million customers. Trust Bank data breach. Of course, that one has 23 in it from October, but looks like a hacking group. Looks like Spider claimed the responsibility of selling employee information for $1 billion. Of course, AT&T had one, if you heard in the news just recently, is a major breach affecting nearly all its customers. They had to pay a hacker over $370,000. Now, I heard that they probably caught that guy, but they're going to also investigate more into it. Disney breach, JP Morgan breach, Dell breach, Sorry, I can't see this one because my recording word is over, and Roku. So you can see there's multiple people here. It's not just a school system. It's not just a one tech vendor. It's all tech vendors. They're all acceptable to these types of breaches. And even when you think that you have the best secure network, there's still vulnerabilities here. So again, you can see this is preventing a data breach in school involves a lot of working, okay, on a lot of different things. Implementing strong access controls, okay, who's the role people, who's using multi-form authentication, doing audits. In our district, we try to do this. We know who has their hands on sensitive data. We know who can access data, and we also know who can't access data because without that MFA, they can't get into certain things like Infinite Campus. Uh, so those are important pieces, and we do audits on our data and our network to see if there are any types of breaches or things that could happen. Uh, of course, with the network security, we're always looking at making sure firewall, which we do work with KDE, and we're hidden behind their firewall. Sorry, but we also try to secure our own Wi-Fi networks. We're always looking at trying to keep our data separate from our network, so only certain ways you can access certain things. And of course, one big thing is encrypting things. You need to make sure you encrypt important information. Try to share as least amount of that across the board as you can. We do try to keep our software updated. Of course, that does work a lot through your network, your Wi-Fi, your desktops, through all the software vendors that we deal with. Of course, we are doing the audit right now. We're going to conduct the security training awareness, just give you an idea of what we do. We develop and enhance or enforce data security policies. Basically, how do we send stuff? What should be handed to what person? How do we follow or do this or that? So there have to be policies and procedures in place. Implement, physical security measures and stuff. Doing some regular backups, making sure your data is collected just in case by some crazy chance somebody goes and says, hey, we've got your data unless you pay this money, ransomware. You're not going to get your data back, and then you're held at that cyber criminals in their hands and stuff. We have to look at our incidents and stuff, monitor, try to make sure that everyone is aware of things that are going on and how do we respond. Vendor management, work with those vendors, making sure that they do have safety implementations of data and stuff. Compliance and regulations. Of course, you always have to look at FERPA and CIPA and different things that are from a federal and state, and also from a district. I mean, we have to ensure those policies and regulations are followed. And then one of the biggest things, of course, is establishing a culture of security. And what that basically means is, hey, if something does happen, do not be afraid to, hey, jump out and say, hey, I don't know what this is, or I didn't do this, but this is kind of scary. Can you help me, or whatever? Because we want to make sure everybody understands that when you click something, sometimes it can't be undone. So we try to push that, think before you click. But even if you do click and you do get into this issue, come to us and we will try to our best to resolve that issue. Of course, the different types, and there's so many types, and this is just a small part in it. Of course, we all know malware, phishing. You'll hear a lot of those DDoS or DOS attacks and stuff like that that always hit. And when they hit quite often. I mean, very frequently, within seconds. And what happens is it shuts networks down. KDE has had multiple attacks that way. And when it happens, it shuts down parts of their network just because they do not want to allow those individuals in. You have man in the middle. You can read most of these injection, 0-day expulsion, password attacks. I can tell you from experience that every day somebody in our district is getting attacked. But we have got safeguards in place that stop that, and that's where the MFA is, uh, because you can actually track the security of what's happening. We've also implemented a lot of this junk and stuff that comes into our district, that it actually goes into quarantine. Now we have trained and shown our staff how to look at these quarantine messages, because sometimes those quarantine messages are important, and shown them how to release those. But at the same time, educating them on what is good, what is bad. That's all part of the game of making sure that everything is good. Social engineering, ransomware, DNS spoofing, inside threats, and IoT attacks. Of course, ransomware we all know, and I just want to give you a couple pieces of information and stuff that if you look here, it does say that Campbell County schools in Kentucky was hit by ransomware. Now, I did give you the links, and you can read about it, and it was on the news and stuff. But what I'm trying to let you see is that's a school. Then it says Kentucky's health system confirms ransomware attack, 2.5 million in this. Cyber attacks have risen over the last year, and of course, I pulled this. I can't think where I got it off the top of my head, but just imagine that they're going to continue to attack and attack, because what are they looking for? They're looking for information from a district, and to sell that information or to get money. It's all about the big dollar sign. Okay, phishing attacks. Of course, you got your hacker. He sends the fish. They target the victim. The victim clicks on the link to a fake website, puts their information in, the hacker gets it, and then he uses that information. And he can put it on websites, he can sell it to individuals, he can ransomware it. There are so many different types. Of course, here's a couple of types of phishing. Of course, they'll hit email: spear phishing, vishing, link manipulation, smishing, and content spoofing. So, I mean, when you look at all these things, and of course you can take your time and look at it, because I gave you, or we provided you with a PowerPoint or a PDF of the slides. Take time to think about those pieces. Again, here's some examples of phishing attacks, and you can look and see, like, there are pieces here. There's links hidden in here. It could be a wrong email, different types of text. They may even have the logo on one. They'll try to send you like an RS, trying to either scare you or, hey, reward you. You know, that's either one. A kind of a Netflix, you're going to lock out of your account. Whenever you receive any of these things, the first thing that you should do is, number one, say, are these true? Two, if they don't sound right, there's something wrong. Either you delete it or you ask someone about it. Never click on the links inside these pieces. If you have questions about that, go to your Netflix account. Go through that process. If it's Amazon, go there. If it's the IRS, hey, you can go to the IRS and check yourself too. So don't fall victim to these attacks. The stats and defense against. So 89% of phishing attacks were orchestrated by professional cyber criminal organizations. 6% of malware is now installed malicious email attachments and spear phishing techniques. And if you look, it costs about an average of $140,000 to businesses. 41% of the IT pros report at least daily phishing attacks. I can promise you that's 100% true, probably higher. 30% of phishing's emails are open. So I can't say that we have done that, but we do preach the different mnemonics. We say stop, think about it, stop before you click. They have one here, S, stop before you click. Think about it, examine the message, look for misspelled words, think about what it is. And then I can't see what the one little thing is. Like I said, it's over this, but uh, make sure if it looks fishy, it probably is fishy. And they did give us a couple ways here. You can check on your own, phishing email, blah, blah, blah. You can email this, phishing text. You can spam text this, and then you can report it to the reports for fraud ftc.gov, or you can contact us, and we will do our very best to help figure out what's going on. Best practices, train, follow good password hygiene. We implement a 15 minimum passphrase tag with some using multiple things such as uh, capital letters, special characters, numbers, mixing it up. The more you can mess with the password, the better it is to make it harder for that person to get into your things. And then the other piece too is that we have a 180-day reset window. I would love to have a run phishing simulation test. I know that you have one of your board members that actually basically got done this way, so she can share that information with you. Set up multiple levels of control, and then use email signature certificates. We don't use that yet, but we could. But of course, there's always a cost behind anything that you actually do. So just be aware of those things. Simple things you can do, and this is not only with the school, but your own personal data. Become educated, implement, analyze logs and stuff like that. Keep security patches updated, strong passwords. Don't allow installation of unapproved apps, and be very aware. Think about what's going on. And I mean, if you do these things, these are simple things that any person who has a computer at home or in a district can do, and it will help them become more safe. The thing about it is, if you're an individual, you're one person, but when you're dealing with a school system, you have multiple individuals, and each person is very important, because if one infects, then it spreads. So that's why it's important to be trained and so forth. What to do in case of a data breach. So what that means is, your data got compromised. You lost your laptop. You've shared something you shouldn't have. You need to contact these three people within the first 24 hours: the principal, superintendent, and chief technology information officer, me. And then what I'll do is, of course, I would contact at the current or chief information security officer at the State Department, Robert Hackworth, the director division of enterprise data, Dee Dee Connor, and our associate commissioner OET is David Couch. And then we would also have to, depending upon what happens, we follow the process. You can look at the data breach and notification procedure. There's a lot of individuals that have to be contacted. From the state police to individuals in the State Department. And if certain things such as a laptop or computer has been stolen, we also have to report that to the police as well. So I've also provided you with a lot of different references here. I can tell you that a lot of these things that you're looking at, we are already a part of. But I do want you to be aware that all these links are important. You should look over those, because number one, as a board of education, you look at a lot of data throughout the year. One thing that I would suggest very highly of you is that you need to start using your school email for school email purposes and not your personal. And the reason that I state this is that if you ever have an audit or an investigation, what possibly could happen is that they take your personal phone, could be your email, personal, and then they will look into that. And the reason I say this is that school business should be done on school terms. Now, if by the next meeting you want to see and you do have a school email address uh, and password, and you would have to also use MFA, because guess what? Your data is just like ours. It is important. It is confidential. It needs to be secure. If in August you want me to go through the process of making sure that you are data safe, because your personal email I cannot do anything with, but if it happens in a breach and it is your school or your email that caused that breach because you were sharing personal information, they will take and go into that. That's just the law. I mean, I cannot stop them from doing that. But I would suggest very highly that you use that as your school informational piece. I would suggest that the SBDM members, parent members, also follow this process, because number one, if you are talking about individuals or and it gets through your mail, or if you've spread, remember the PI or it's PI information, personal information, and it's leaked. Uh, at least if it's on the school's side and use the school mail, we can do a lot more. When it's personal, they will take, and then we'll have to go into it a little more depth. And that's your personal stuff. I don't want anything to happen to that, but I do want you to be aware that I'm suggesting that you use your school email and password. And we set up MFA for each of the board members and also for the SBDM parent members. So if you've got questions, just remember, and this is for school as well, because I'm going to be doing the same thing with them. They'll probably watch the same video. I'm sorry that it's so long. Try to make it shorter this year, but it's what it is. Now, again, I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person to deliver this and answer your questions, but if you will give those questions to Ms. Combs, I will answer those at the next board meeting or earlier if I need to for you. But my recommendation for the board members is to start using your school email address and password. And also, any time that you give out your email or anything like that and it is dealing with the district, it really needs to be that school email. That's the same thing that when we look on the, I think the state information where it shows that it's your personal accounts or your personal email, it really should be the schools. So that's my recommendation to the board. Again, if you have any questions or you have over any of this, just let me know. And again, I'm sorry I could not be there, and I'm sorry that it's so long, but at the same time, it is important information that you need to know. And of course, it is a requirement for you to complete before the beginning of the school year or by the end of August. This will also be recorded for our school staff members, and they will also have to listen to me for 30 minutes. So with that being said, have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.